Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Stacie Straus, Acie Wyatt, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Glad to be
Thanks
here.
for having us.
Yeah, this is great. You two represent the first twins that I'm having on the podcast. Let's start with this. Are you ever annoyed when people say two twins?
No,
Stacie, doesn't bother you?
not at all. I think it's kind of natural for me. Like especially when we were kids, people almost didn't even call us like by our names. It was like Acie and Stacie or Stacie and Acie. So it's like now when we're older and we see folks that, knew us when we were little, they're like Acie and Stacie. No, it's just one of us, but
Yeah. Plus, like growing up, we had two other sets of twins on our street, right?
Oh my gosh.
So to hear the phrase two twins versus just twins is like, it's two twins is four, right?
Right.
But, it was just kind of one of those things where we were the only ones that were born there. The other ones moved in at some point in their life, but they weren't born in Ashland. So it's just kind of one of those things where, like, we were the twin street, but Stacie and I were the ones that were there first and welcoming in the other sets of twins.
All right, I'm going to come back with a lot of twin questions. Some may be weird. I'm not trying to be weird, though. I should mention from the beginning, the reason we're talking right now is Wick Stansbury sent me an email saying I should have both of you on for lots of reasons. One, you're from Ashland. Two, you both were prolific in sports. And three, he says you're great people. And so what's not to like about those three things?
completely agree. I guess I'll have to pay him later. So
All right, so can you guys read each other's minds or anticipate what the other one's going to say or do?
I cannot. I don't know about Acie.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, now that we don't live in the same city anymore, it's probably a little bit more difficult. But yeah, every now and then, I'm like, I should call Stacie and see how she's doing. And usually there's something, usually it's a good thing. I will say that, and just kind of reach out to her. And I think there's only been one time where we can remember where we had like some type of like twin connection. We were in high school, and I had gone to school earlier than her, and she had a little spell of being lightheaded at home, and I was in Patrick Henry, which is 5 miles, 10 miles from where we live. I felt lightheaded at that exact same moment. So just kind of one of those things where I eventually, my mom called or whatever, and was like, "Hey, your sister's not coming in today because she's feeling a little lightheaded." I was like, "What time did that happen?" So I think that's the only time I can remember it happening. But other than that, there's some little things that we kind of get, but I wouldn't say we can read each other's minds.
Who's the older of the two?
Acie is.
I am by 4 minutes. So
4 minutes. So Stacie was competing to be the oldest.
And it's crazy because you'll understand this later. We're super competitive. So that's very just an interesting point. But we were born premature. We were born 2 months early, very tiny. And so when we were born, I stayed in the hospital for around 2 months after we were born. I think for a little bit more time with the family at home, but that's the first sign of the competitive nature that would come for the rest of our lives.
Do you remember your weights?
I think we were like 3 and 3.5 or something.
yeah, we were. I think they said that we were the size of Coke cans.
That's unbelievable to think about, right?
But the other thing, so yeah, she was there about 2 months. I came home around Thanksgiving. She came home around Christmas. So, it's just one of those things where I guess those were the holiday gifts of that year. But also because we were born 2 months early, we actually have a cousin that was born in December, and he was born on time. But because we were born 2 months early, I am the oldest grandchild. And Stacie obviously had a head start but she's the oldest granddaughter. But, it's not anything that really mattered in the general scheme of things, but it's just kind of one of those things I can always hold over the cousins of like, I'm the oldest grandchild. So you should do this instead of that.
So y'all didn't start kindergarten at the same time? Is that what you were saying, Acie?
No, we did.
Oh, you're
did.
talking about that one particular day. I got
No,
you.
it's just when we came home from the hospital, because our birthday's in November. So I came over on Thanksgiving. She came over on Christmas. But no, we actually started kindergarten technically early. We were 4. So.
Oh, that's really early.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So were y'all in classes together? Is that how they rolled back then? Did they always have twins in class together?
Yeah, it's funny. We didn't really have a lot of classes together.
I think back then, I think they tried to not have us at the same classroom, if I can remember. But it's ironic now because I have two sets of nephews who are twins, not biologically, through marriage, and they're at least the oldest ones have had several classes together. So I was like, oh, I guess they don't care anymore. But I think they intentionally try to keep us kind of separate through elementary school, at least.
And why do you think that is? What was the logic back then?
Oh, I know for us, like they wanted to confirm get the test in, if I remember the stories correctly, just because of our age. And so I don't know if it was like a dependency thing, like trying to keep us so we would have our own personalities, maybe. I don't know. But obviously now in this day and time, it doesn't seem to matter.
So when y'all were, say, 8, 9, 10, did you guys want to spend free time together?
Well, when we were 8, 9, and 10, we were playing a bunch of like little league and rec sports. So free time was doing stuff competitive. But it's like we lived together. That was enough time to hang out. And plus, the other thing was like at that age, we were still playing some sports together, co-ed wise, like especially soccer. We were doing traveling soccer at that point. So I mean, it's like besides seeing each other every day, we also were on this same teams, because back then in the 80s, there weren't a lot of like dedicated women's sports other than softball and I guess basketball, but even basketball, Stacie was on some of the teams I was on because there weren't a lot of young girls playing basketball where you could kind of field a team. So, the other thing is like, who really wants to hang out with their sibling all the time? So, I miss it now that we are, miles apart from each other. But I think because we spend so much time together, just kind of growing up, that it is a balance at this point. At this point.
And a lot of things you experienced at the same time, whether it's playing a particular sport at the same time or going into high school at the same time, having a homecoming dance at the same time, that sort of thing. Yeah. There's I've known some twins that are really, really tight, like can't be away from each other, but that becomes really weird as you think about adulthood, right? You kind of need to separate at some point.
Yeah, and I think because we're brother sister, it's a little easier to kind of have that separation, because it's like obviously at some point you kind of mature in different ways just because you're brother and sister. So,
all right. So when I was, I'm 9 years older than you guys, roughly, maybe 10. I graduated high school in 87. The only sports available to me when I was rec league age, football, basketball, and baseball. That was it. And my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, I think she had basketball and softball, and that was it. It sounds like a decade after that, there were a few more options, soccer being one of them. But what were the sports available? We'll start with you, Stacie, for young girls to play.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, like Acie mentioned, a lot of the sports were accessible, but they were co-ed. So we started off with soccer. We then, I think, moved on to basketball. I eventually started playing softball when I was 12. Like give or take. Folks saw me doing other sports and they were like, interestingly enough, you're fast. I think you'd be good at softball, not track, softball. Ironic later in life is what partially paid for my but yeah, those were, and then I eventually played volleyball in high school. Acie has a much more interesting sports history just because I think he's played every single sport that is out there. But I started with soccer and basketball. Moved on to softball later, so I can't remember if it was available when we were little. But obviously by the time I was 12, for sure it was a thing. And then he did Little League football. I cheered, I think, for one season, and realized cheerleading was not my thing. So I'm glad I was able to cheer for the Vikings and have pictures to show for it. But I stuck out with that one for about a year and just moved on.
What was your favorite sport when you were a kid? Before high school, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. It ended up being softball. Like to this day, I get out there and just play for fun. It definitely was. I actually enjoyed volleyball a lot, but for sure, my skill and just my love and my passion went with softball for 100%.
I have to ask, power hitter for average. Were you more of a defender that did okay at the plate?
So I don't want to brag or anything, but I was probably better on defense. I've gotten a number of Golden Glove awards for my defense. I was an outfielder. I was never really a power hitter, but when I played softball for Patrick Henry in my senior year, the coach that we had here felt like I would be a really good slap hitter. And so he moved me to the left side, and my senior year, I started slap hitting. And again, interestingly enough, I went on to play softball at Hampton University, and the coach for Hampton knew my high school coach. So we went to different tournaments and things together. And when I went to college, I was like, I'm just going to go, get my education. Obviously, again, we'll talk about this more, but Acie and I went to college together, and he was going to play football. I was like, I just want to get my education. I'm not playing softball. And I'm sitting in my dorm room, and the coach calls my phone. And he's like, where are you at? And I was like, in my dorm? Who was this? He's like, this is Coach Lassiter. I need for you to get to the gym tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, Coach, I wasn't really planning to play. No, just come out. Let's check it out. Let's see how you do. And I did the thing as a walk-on. I think I ended up having to pay for a semester of college. Walked on, became a starter. I led off at Hampton University as the first hitter for the entire 4 years that I was there. Eventually became a captain. Just a lot of wins from that. So again, softball is like my heart, but definitely had a lot of positives from that one person telling me because I was fast, I should try it, and just the amazing things that happened after that.
Stacie, there aren't many people that I've ever run into that batted right-handed, and then the coach turned them to the other side, which is really unnatural for a lot of people, and then turned you into a slap hitter because they knew as soon as the ball touched the ground, there was no way the shortstop or the third baseman were going to throw you out.
That's exactly it. It's more common now than when we were younger. But now, if you watch college softball or, any kind of escalated softball on TV, half the team are slap hitters now. They're definitely not left-handed. So it's definitely like a strategic move in the game. And it really brings some action to it. At the point, you hit the ball and you just run. And I think throughout college, my bat averaged around 500. And so I had a pretty good on-base percentage from just switching sides.
Did you ever pull the ball?
I could. It was part of the way I was trained. So for the most part, I had a very specific locations on the field that I was expected to hit. But on occasion, if I needed to go the other way, I got the sign, and I just had to kind of do my best.
I've never heard of that, getting the sign to put it in a particular part of the field. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because it's fast pitch, and the pitchers are pretty close, and that ball is coming in there fast.
It's coming fast. So sometimes to me it's luck, but again, you get out there and, we got out there for practice at 6 a.m. to work out or be somewhere near the field, and would get into the gym and just run and do different activities and whatnot. So it's a lot of work that goes into whatever level you're at in college playing sports, and it's a lot of dedication. In most cases, it's year round, and so it's not something that is taken lightly. So it's a lot of practice went into me being able to do what I did.
Yeah, you're obviously fast. Did you ever run track?
Did not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I have two. One is 16, the junior at Patrick. She runs track, so she's kind of doing one of the things that I just never. While I was fast, I just like to run a lot. I wanted to get to first base, second base, third base, and home. Kind of take a seat on the bench. But she seems to love track so far, so I'm excited for her.
That's cool. All right, Acie, what did you play before high school?
So before high school, it's funny because I actually came back around to playing football in high school. But yeah, so we started out Little League, Ashland Vikings. With
I'm a Viking. I'm a former Viking.
Yeah, so just playing flag football. And I was like, I mean, this is fun, but I don't really like it, So then, our mom, just pushed us to just try whatever sports, so really got into soccer, loved playing basketball, had a pretty good jump shot, not, anything lights out. Plus, I'm 5'9" now. That's the tallest I've ever gotten. So, my basketball playing career was, going to fade at some point, because I wasn't fast like Stacie. I just had a pretty good shot when open. Usually was going to go down or, at least rattle out. But then, my mom also encouraged us. I was watching Malvia Washington play in the U.S. Open in tennis. And she was like, "You want to play tennis?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll try." So, there was a camp at Randolph-Macon that she signed me up for. And I just went and did that. And, had a lot of fun with that. Played that in middle school, played soccer in middle school, as well as Little League and travel team as well. And, just, playing the rec league basketball or Little League at some point. So those are kind of the main ones. And then Little League baseball as well. I was a center fielder there. So, it's like, I guess I was relatively fast, but Stacie's faster. Like I would imagine if we race now, I might get her, maybe, but probably not. Probably not.
For our listening audience, Stacie's disagreeing with the
yes.
non-verbal.
But it's funny. Stacie kind of mentioned it earlier of like just how competitive we are. So every summer we went to the Randolph-Macon soccer camp, and Coach Werner, who was the coach there. They always had competitions like throughout, like, best camper or whatever, but they always had this one at the end. It was the chipping contest. And so the chipping contest was you were at a certain distance and you had to hit the crossbar. And, whoever hit it first or whoever hit it the most was usually the person that won the competition. And so that became like the biggest at that point competitive thing that Stacie and I had. And it wasn't like we said, I don't think Stacie and I ever really talked trash to each other. But it was just kind of like I'm gonna win this because you won it last year. I'm gonna get it this year, or I won it last year and she wanted to get it back. And so I don't remember what year it was. But there's one year where we both just kept hitting it. And so kind of going back and forth. And it's amazing, like what you remember, like, as a kid. I don't remember the year, but I just remember where we were because that field isn't there anymore because of the new construction at Randolph-Macon. But I just remember we kept hitting it. And then there's at one point where I missed and Stacie kicked one and it glanced off the top of the crossbar. And, you could hear it, I guess, if you were close enough. And because we had kind of gone back and forth for so long, they were like, Stacie won. It was like, huh? So like, that's kind of like the, unwritten competitive spirit that we had. And, it's definitely one of those things that, I'll say it made us better, and, I think Stacie would agree with that, but it's one of those things where, you always kind of need someone to kind of keep pushing you to do better. And Stacie, outside of like all the other, like, just supportive, like encouragement is also kind of one of those things where it's like, because excuse me, we didn't have a trophy room growing up, but we had a lot of trophies like around the house, and so like Stacie would have her kind of side of trophies and then I'd have my side of trophies. And so it's like, I think once we got to high school, we were like, well, Stacie's got the lead by a lot. Because I'll say it. She was the best athlete in the sport she was competing in. And so of course she was going to get the trophies, as we're, I'm just trying to do my best and, try to make a difference and, be more of a team guy that, could excel when I needed to. But she was that person that those teams could count on to, really get the job done. And so her trophies were earned. My trophies were earned too. But once we got to high school, we we're like, so you have more by a lot. And like, I think slowly since high school, I've caught up just a little bit. But, it's just definitely one of those things like, we live in two different states now. And I have no idea where most of those trophies are at this point. But it's one of those things like we joke about it every time I'm back home and, I'll see like, one of her college trophies that she got. I'm like, okay, I see you. I see you. But, it's just very fun, to kind of look back as our grandmother, because that's we grew up in our grandparents' house with our mom. And I think at one point when I had moved away, she was like, "You really need to come and get these trophies." And I'm like, I don't, these trophies are 20 years old. I'm in my 20s. These were things that I won, before I was 12. And they never threw them away because, obviously they're super proud of us. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I think they ended up being donated. Is that right, Stace?
We were able to.
Yeah. So, I mean, like,
yeah.
So, a good reuse for them. Something we obviously know we earned, but if we could kind of share that feeling with someone else that could get that trophy, probably, I think at that point they were taking our nameplate off of it. But, just that feeling of accomplishment and having that trophy and knowing like what it feels like and wanting to get that feeling over and over again. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Go ahead, Stacie.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can talk sports all day long. Like, I think both Acie and I have a super passion around sports, but we were raised to be extremely well-rounded. So while we competed together on the field, we also, like, Acie played the cello, I played the violin.
Oh, nice.
We're super active in church. What else did we do, Ace? We did, like, NAACP,
Mm-hmm.
Acie Scouts, I did Girl Scouts, like, everything that was available, we kind of at least tried at this point. Like, our mom was huge, and raising us in a way that was super well balanced. I think it's made us both really decent people. And then, like, especially growing up in the 80s, 90s in Ashland, with the things that we did, we often were the only African Americans or limited in African Americans. So it's like that balance of getting to like meet people who you didn't see every day, like in your house or at church or wherever, and just get those relationships. I think both Acie and I still have just a lot of relationships that we built through sports, music, all of those other things like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, just getting to do everything that a child should kind of get to do, and meeting different people and just helping us to be who we are today.
Yeah, I was going to ask why your mom had you so involved in sports, but it sounds like she had you so involved in sports because she wanted you to be active, one, and two, to be balanced. So it was rounding you guys out. It was not like she was trying to build these Division I potentially pro athletes someday. She wanted you to be good people and well-rounded was certainly a big part of that.
Exactly it.
Yeah, she just really wanted us to do stuff. Sports obviously took up a good amount of that stuff, but it's one of those things where Stacie said it, like having done all that stuff growing up really gives you an opportunity to kind of, because I would imagine Stacie uses this, in her work life now, like because we did so many different things, we're able to talk to people and meet them where they are, not meet them where we'd like for them to be, but meet them where they are, because, we have worked and played with and corresponded with and collaborated with so many different people that it makes it, I wouldn't say easy because nothing's really easy, but comfortable to just be able to walk into a room. And Stacie said it, sometimes being the only Black person in the room, not just like when we were in orchestra, the only one like in the orchestra, but the only one in the room. You never felt uncomfortable there because, having done all that stuff, plus like the encouragement that our family gave us, and excuse me, especially our mom, that you never felt like you didn't belong in a space. And so, that's something that I carry to this day, where it's like, I might be the only, but I definitely deserve to be here.
Yeah, it's as I mentioned, I'm a little bit older than you guys, or maybe a lot older than you guys. When I played football and basketball, I remember thinking, hey, this is a fairly diverse environment, but it was only white and Black kids. There were no Hispanic kids. There were no Asian kids. But I didn't think anything of it because from a young age, I was playing those sports. But other endeavors, There were no black kids around typically. And so the fact that your mom was putting you in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, which I think back then tended to be more white than it was anything, or music was probably more white than anything. Not only did it make you feel comfortable, you felt naturally included and you didn't think twice about it, which is a fantastic way to grow up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because like as you were saying that, like I still remember the first Jewish people that we ever met. I mean, it was our my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Unger.
I miss Unger too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then her kids. But I had no concept like growing up like what that was. And then, we had a guy, Amit Patel, move here from the Middle East. I'm not sure which country, but he's the first person from the Middle East that I'd ever met. But didn't think anything of it. It's like obviously like back then Ashland, Western Hanover County really was mainly black and white with a sprinkling of other. But it's just one of those things where I would imagine Stacie's the same way. It's like, because of the way we were raised, like we were the ones that kind of welcomed people in. And so like when you met someone for the first time, it was almost like an instant friendship just because, it's like, well, welcome in. No, you're just here. Well, I'm here. Why don't we just be friends and go from there?
So Stacie, your fondest memory growing up in Ashland that has nothing to do with sports?
Family's huge for me and getting to spend like family time and holidays. So I just remember like Halloween kind of stands out as a time where our aunt we used to trick or treat in Ashland, and our aunt used to also take us to Chesterfield. How she was able to do that, I don't know right now as an adult, but just getting to spend those types of moments with like my cousin and our cousins and any other time for holidays were always special times for me.
Cool. Acie, same question for you.
I think it was, going to the Strawberry Fair. I don't know. Sorry, there are cleaning crews here at the office. But really, like, I mean, it wasn't far from where we lived, so we'd walk there. But, just really, and I was like, why do we have a Strawberry Fair? And it was always because we have a Strawberry Fair. There's no other reason than that, right? And so really just kind of going, finding out that my first favorite dessert was strawberry shortcake. But yeah, just, like really just kind of being around our family and like this otherwise, generic event really meant a lot to us. Just another time to just kind of hang out and just be around each other, and, family from out of town, but still from Ashland would come and really like be a bigger gathering in that regard. And then also probably another fond memory is just, because we went to Providence Baptist Church growing up, was the homecomings and really kind of getting to know other people that had moved away. One, because it kind of showed that there was a bigger world beyond just Ashland, that you could actually leave and still consider Ashland your home. But really just kind of connecting the dots, like, okay, you're related to this person. How? Wait, you're related to me? How? You're related to me. Oh, okay, I got it. Really kind of connecting the dots. Just really fond memories of, that's the Strawberry Fair is my fondest memory in town. And then the fondest memory just outside of the town proper, was all the time we spent at Providence.
Yeah, it's technically outside of town proper, but it's still an Ashland address out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, sorry, with the homecomings, getting the U-Crop sheet cakes. And as kids, we would always compete or kind of try to box each other out for the flowers that were on them, because it was just straight sugar. Just
straight up rose full of sugar.
Yeah. Yes, but yeah, but that's kind of it's probably why I'm a diabetic now. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like, just kind of having fun with the other kids that we went to Providence with, but also kind of feeling really special when the deacon or the deaconess would be like, "No, you get the rose this time." So
those sheet cakes were awesome.
Yes,
couldn't beat them.
Not at all. Yeah. All right. So Acie, for you, your best memory, fondest memory, however you want to think about it, from playing sports at Patrick Henry?
Oh, it's winning the state title. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, there's a couple other ones, like it wasn't undefeated against Acie, so that's kind of bothersome. But it's really winning the state title in '94, because that was just a really special season, especially how '93 ended. Because I in high school I got back to football. My middle school soccer coach, Coach Santos, in middle school, soccer was in the fall, but in high school, it moved to the spring. So he's like, well, you're not doing anything in the fall. Why don't you just go play football? And I'm like, well, I don't want to get hit. He's like, no, you don't have to get hit. You could just kick. So I remember the spring of '92. And it was the last spring of middle school. We just went out to the football field and just kicked. And, he was like, well, this is how you kick. I'm like, okay, got it. And I got it, And so, just making it way to the football. 2 years later, we're in the state championship game. But, in '93, we lost in the semifinals. Super muddy game, so it wasn't a good kicking game. I don't think we scored, if I remember correctly. But had it been a drier field, we would have at least been in field goal range. And we may have got some points in, just kind of to get some things going. But maybe that's my fondest memory. It was '93, not '94. But no, winning the state title in '94, and going up against the 757 team, Deep Creek, and they were the perennial, like that region was the perennial, hey, we won all the state titles. And we're like, well, we got something to say about that. And, really kind of going through that season and, kind of coming up with the motto of too strong. And then to see like our parents and our fans, really kind of rally around that as well. And then you start to see the banners in the crowd and like, the too strong. I'd imagine like if Twitter were around then, it would be hashtag too strong, right? But, just kind of being a part of that team and, showing that like, us country folks from Western Hanover, we are elite, and being able to prove that, there's no better feeling than that. And plus, it's obviously a footnote in history, but because I kicked and the last score we had was an extra point, I scored the last point in the game. So I got to add the cherry on top to an awesome season. And so that's probably the one that really kind of sticks out the most when it comes to accomplishment in high school.
I have to ask this because I'm kind of a statistical nerd when it comes to football. What was your longest field goal that year or your entire high school career?
It was 40.
That's
no, sorry.
Hey, that's a lot farther than most people can kick a ball.
Sorry, it was 39 because I was trying to convince the holder to move back a yard and he wouldn't. And it was against Hermitage, our senior year, so '95. And I actually slipped because it was at Hermitage and their field was terrible at the time. But I actually slipped and it still went through. There was one where I went out to kick a 62-yarder.
Oh gosh!
But they called timeout and called off the
Oh wow.
field goal team. And they did it. It was against TJ, and at the time they were awful. And so in that game where they sent me out, we were up 27-0 in the first quarter, and one of their players on the extra point to make it 28-0 absolutely came through and decleated me. Right? Like it was to the point, like I was watching the ball land and all I hear are three distinct breaths and then blow, and he hit me so hard. It was unexpected. He got thrown out of the game. And it's the angriest I've ever seen Coach Long at an opponent. Coach Ray Long. our coach at the time. And so he had a few choice words for TJ's coach. And he's like, I'll run the score up. I don't care, and it was already, 28-0. And I'm sorry, that was the 94 season. But I just remember, like, as part of running it up. And at that point we were up, I think 56-0 when he was like, Acie, go out there. And it was Coach Henry who called the timeout. And the funny thing is, Coach Henry is like a family friend. Like, he's a deacon, or was a deacon at our church. And so, like, very, very close to him, close to his entire family. And I just remember looking at him like, really? Because I would have made it. Because, I mean, like, back then, like, he kicked off a block. So it was really like in golf, kicking off or teeing off versus hitting off the ground.
Right.
So it's just kind of launching the ball. And I probably would have missed because I was pretty sore from that hit still.
Oh, well.
But
62 yards is a really long kick.
Yeah, I would have made it, though. I am confident that I would have made it.
You don't sound confident.
No, I okay. 80% sure I would have made it.
But so 2 quick comments. One, Santos converted soccer players to kickers, I think, every other year for 30 plus years.
Yep.
I mean,
I would say every 4.
Really?
Just because, Tony Labrador was there before I was. And he kicked before I got there. And then, I got there. Actually, I played a varsity game my freshman year, which is weird. But, from sophomore year on, I was the starting kicker. And then, we had someone that came in after me. So, yeah, I think he tried to find someone that could, play at least the sophomore, junior, senior year. It worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he and Coach Long must have gotten along really well because Santos hooked him up a lot with kickers.
Yeah.
And the other comment I'll make is I grew up with Coach Henry. I knew Coach Henry growing up, and I played basketball with Rod. And
oh, cool.
I love playing with Rod. Oh, man, did I love playing basketball with Rod. He's a great guy. Cool. All right, Stacie, same question for you. Fondest memory of playing any sport in high school?
Probably, again, I got to probably go back to softball. My senior year was by far my best year. And I was like apparently 1 vote away from being player of the year in our conference. Lost out to an amazing pitcher at Godwin. So, I mean, as much as I hate coming in second in anything, she also had an amazing season. So, it's not much I can say. And then I'm huge on like seeing my name, hearing my name, all of those things. So I remember like being on the cover of whatever the Hanover Press thing is. I think it is actually the Hanover Press or something.
Herald
Progress.
No, not the Herald Progress. It's like the little magazine looking one.
The Mechanicsville Local?
I don't know. Was that Acie? It was like in color. I don't know. It was one of those things. And it's a picture of me, and I'm only 5'3". But it's a picture of me spiking the ball in volleyball, and I look like I'm 10 feet over the net. And it's just a really cool picture. So I still have the booklet here. But those 2 moments just stand out in high school.
No, that's really cool. How did you get into volleyball? That was not a thing in Hanover County back in the 80s.
Yeah, I cannot remember. It might have just been one of those things, like kind of like Acie said, I was free. So it's kind of like, and it could have been a thing that, one of the basketball coaches recommended just to, maintain different things like jumping and exercise. I honestly can't remember, but I did love it. Like, I loved everything about volleyball.
I think it was one of your basketball coaches. I think it was, you had a free season. So why don't you go ahead and do that? But I think it was one of the basketball coaches that suggested you do it.
It makes sense. So it probably was where it started.
So y'all ended up going to the same college. How did y'all choose? Y'all didn't choose together. Did you choose independently and separately, and then you told each other after both of you had decided that? How did that work?
Well, I know for me, it's like kind of an interesting story. Our Uncle Ernest was stationed in Hampton for a little while when we were in high school. And I think we spent like a weekend down there with him maybe, or overnight. And he just took us to the campus. And I remember anybody who goes to Hampton University, you got to go to the water and you fall in love. It's just an absolutely beautiful spectacle, peaceful, serene. It's just everything that you can imagine. So I remember going to the water and just saying, this is pretty cool, you know? And then as I started considering colleges, I applied to a number of colleges, and I wanted to stay in Virginia. Like, I'm not huge about travel. Acie and I are completely different, I think, in that aspect. So I narrowed it down to like VCU, VSU, and Hampton. And I could have potentially went to VSU on a volleyball scholarship. Our mom went to VSU for a year, so it would have been a pretty cool connection there. But I was leaning towards VCU, and my mom said, "You need to get away for at least a year." And she was like, "I don't really care where you go, but do not stay in this area. Go away for at least a year. If you hate it, you can come back home, but I need for you to get out of Ashland." And Acie can tell this story because I think he probably doesn't know this, but we talk about, you asked the question earlier about, do we need to be around each other, or do we have that kind of connection like certain twins? We don't, like, especially like when you're same sex or whatever. But I have this certain comfort with when Acie is around. I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel protected. And so once he had made the decision to go to Hampton, and I had that decision to pick somewhere away from Ashland, it felt easier knowing that no matter what, I had my brother in the same area as me, and I would be okay. So I know for him, I think Hampton was more of a first pick, but he definitely helped he's doing the face. He definitely helped influence my decision to go there.
So the combination of mom saying get out of Ashland and the fact, and you knew Acie was going to Hampton.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
That's all it took.
Okay. Right on.
And so to that point, so I had a full scholarship offer to go to Virginia State, and our mom was like, I don't know if this is it. Reputationally, Virginia State wasn't at a good place. And so, her having gone there, like, that meant a lot to that. And she was, I was like, well, I know, like, Hampton, they said you could be a preferred walk-on. You'd probably earn a scholarship. Also had a similar offer at North Carolina A&T. But, I was like, I don't know anything about that school. I having visited Hampton, I kind of knew there, the area, and, knew he had an uncle there. And so, decided to go to Hampton. And I will say, because I got to Hampton first, because I had to go for, preseason camp. When Stacie got on campus, she had 81 other brothers when she got there. And so it was really, I hope that, like, in addition to, like, knowing that I always had her back, all of those guys had her back, and so again, like, it goes back to our mom pushing us to do different things, and, like, I instantly made friends, and, like, to this day, there's a couple guys that I'll shoot text to, and I don't know if you need to cut this part out, but Hampton's homecoming is this weekend. And so, they're all like, hey, you coming? I was like, nah, I actually have a couple of, like, work trips that, I am in between. So I'm just going to take it easy that weekend. But it's definitely one of those things where, it's one of the best decisions, like, I could have made, and, I tell people all the time, it's, having gone to Hampton, like, I got 3 key things out of going there. I guess, and one of them's like or there's a residual one based off of the other one. The first thing is that it's where I met my wife, right?
Wow.
So like, above all else, like, that's why Hampton means so much to me.
You also are obligated to say things like that, Acie.
Well, if it felt like an obligation, then I would have said it like one. But, like, I really do mean it, and she knows. And the second one is that I got to play football for 4 more years. And so residually from that, I made lifelong friends that I can, count on and call on at a drop of a hat. And then the third one is, like, the career wise, it's where I met the person that would hire me to work at ESPN. And so, like, those 3 things were all pushed because, Barbara Jean, our mom, was like, hey, don't go to Virginia State. If you need to go to Hampton, because, I knew we'd have to pay for some of it at some point. She's like, well, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do, and we'll figure it out from there. But, one, get a little further away from home than 40 minutes. So just double it. It's an hour and a half. But it was far enough away. was far enough away that, people couldn't just pop down. Now, family did spend a lot of time in Hampton and traveling around the country, watching us play. But
not us, just
okay.
one of us.
Okay. But it's definitely one of those things where it was close enough that they could get to our games, but far enough away that they couldn't just randomly pop in. But also close enough if and we never needed this, thankfully. But if anything ever went down, they could get down here or get down there, and probably it was an hour and a half. But they probably could have done it in an hour if they needed to.
Yeah.
No, I love this conversation, by the way. I'm having fun talking to you guys. You mentioned 3 schools each that you were looking at. 5 of the 6 are HBCU schools. Was there sort of this notion that an HBCU was where you were going to land, or did it just so happen to be that way?
For me, it just so happened. Actually, I did not consider HBCUs like I do now. When we got there, for me, it was a culture shock. While there was some diversity at Patrick Henry, it wasn't anything like Hampton University. And so to go from being around, I had a number of different friends. Again, to your point, we didn't have a lot of diversity in terms of outside of black and white, but my friend group was pretty mixed. And so, yeah, definitely the opposite at Hampton. But what I needed, there's so many positives, no regrets. I met my best friend there. I have a degree in sociology. I do use it, to Acie's point, kind of to know how to communicate with people. But I actually learned more with my softball coach than probably a lot of what I learned in class. He taught me a lot about Excel spreadsheets and putting stats in, and just different things that I use more in life now than some of my degree. But for me, it was an afterthought, and it ended up being a very positive afterthought.
Same question for you, Acie.
Yeah, I don't think I really kind of thought of it, and especially if you just go to Hampton and then you go to some of the other HBCUs, you're like, well, Hampton's different. Yes, it's an HBCU, it's in the title, but Hampton's just a little different than most HBCUs. And I think if you ever talk to any Hamptonian, they'll say it differently, but you'll still get the kind of same sense of it. I'm not saying Hampton's better than the other HBCUs. I'm just saying it's different, and I wouldn't go to any other one. But it's definitely now. Sorry, side note. If anybody from Norfolk State is saying anything, then oh yeah, I'll absolutely lean in. But other than that, it's very respectful. But it's one of those things. I mean, I was also looking at William & Mary and UVA as well. It's just that I knew if I went to Hampton or A&T, then I'd have the chance to play football for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
because the other thing was I had a scholarship offer to go to Shenandoah to play cello, and so I could have done that, but I obviously made the right decision.
All right, so now that you brought music back into it, who is the better musician?
Oh, it's me.
I would definitely go to Acie.
No, Stacie's probably the better singer, but
that's a stretch.
Well, I can't sing at all, so it's not that much more. But it's one of those things. For a few years, I was the best cellist in Hanover, as far as I was the first chair in the Hanover County Orchestra. So it's just one of those things where it's could either of us play now? Probably not. But back then, when we were really trying, it was close. But I think it's also one of those specialty things of cello is the one that can hold the bass line if they need to, but also the one that every now and then gets a solo. And so I think between that and kicking, because kicking is the ultimate team sport position, because you will only be in position if your team gets you there, and then you depend on 2 other people to do their job in order for you to do your job. But those 2 things really kind of anchor me as kind of who I am now, because it's obviously you can't do anything without the team, but every now and then if you need to step up, then you step up.
Cool. So when y'all were in the middle of college, sophomore, junior kind of thing, did you have any clue what you were going to be doing after college? Stacie, start with you.
Actually, I wanted to do something in the social work field. When I took sociology in high school, it was more catered to the interaction between human beings. When I got to Hampton and studied sociology, it focused very much on African Americans in society. So for me, it was an interesting transition because it was like, oh, I thought this was about this, but now it's a little bit more catered to folks who look like me and understanding difference in experience and how when you get into the real life, things aren't always like they were in Ashland, or, you're going to experience some different things. So for me, I was like, okay, I can still do like social work or something. I really always wanted to help people, especially kids. What I found was that when I started applying for jobs, I didn't have enough experience. So I really wasn't getting any callbacks. And so I just took a chance on Capital One, applied, obviously passed the tests that were required back then, and started working there back in the early 2000s. And
they
right
got
now,
you. They got their hooks in you.
They got me, but it's been an amazing experience for me. Like, I don't know what my life path should have been, but I've been able to do a lot at Capital One, meet a lot of people. I've won almost every award that they honor there. So I've seen that same level of success within my, personal career. And I just enjoy it. Like I'm hoping to be able to retire there, using a lack of a better word, even though it's no real retirement there. But I love it there. And, I didn't have a plan. That's the one difference that I do. Like our mom kind of just said, you're going to college. You're going to do these things, but it was never like, for me, like a plan, like, okay, go to college and know what you're going to do next. So that's the one key difference in the way I parent. Because everything else about my mom, I try to mirror every day of my life. She was the most amazing person. I do tell my children, I don't care if you go to college. I don't necessarily care what you do to get to the next point, but you have to be able to afford the lifestyle you want. If you want to travel, you need to be able to afford a place to stay, because you can't stay with me. And, have food and travel expense and, room and board and all those good things. But, whatever your path to getting there, you have to have a path. And for my daughter being a junior now, we started that conversation a year or two ago. She wants to go into the nursing field. And so she's already in a good space of getting to that place. But for me, the life turned out like it's supposed to be, but I did not have I'll go to Hampton and be this. Just kind of went with the flow and lucked out with the job at Capital One. It's been really successful for me.
You and I have followed similar paths, and not knowing exactly what you wanted to do 10 years at a time, there's nothing wrong with that. I still don't know what I want to do, and you guys know I'm in my 50s. I do have to ask this because Acie told me what department you work in. Can you tell the listening audience what department you're in?
So I'm in enterprise payments. I essentially handle, most of the credit card payments and exceptions that come through Capital One. I'm a people leader, so I do lead a group of folks, amazing women who have to make sure that exceptions get processed correctly and a lot of other stuff happens. So it's pretty cool.
I imagine you've worked in quite a few departments over your 20 years.
I have not.
Really?
I probably have a record there. I started as a research associate. So back then everything was insourced. And we used to get we literally get the credit card payments where you mail in your payment. And this is for the listeners too. Please put your credit card number on your payment. But I handle the folks who do not put their credit card number on their payment, essentially. And we have to find you. We go through a number of research systems and find you. So back then we used to touch about, I think 1,000 or 2,000 payments a day. Now we're down to significantly less because we outsource a lot. But I have stayed in payment operations my entire career at Capital One. It just moved up the ladder.
Yeah, I was in call centers my entire time there. So you and I are the unique ones. I think most people do bounce around, but not everybody has to.
Yeah.
Cool. Acie, what about you? Did you know what you wanted to do?
So similarly, I had a loose plan, but nothing that was like, oh yeah, I'm going to end up being, a senior producer at Sports Business Journal. There was, in college, it was kind of like, especially because Hampton was smaller, you had a chance to kind of try different things. And so, we had a weekly show, and it only went on. I don't even know if it went on campus, but it was just really just kind of a practice run. It's called Acie Viewpoint, and I was one of the reporters on the show, and so it was one of those things where I had a teammate who really, really, really wanted to do sports. And I'm like, I don't care what I do. I just like telling people stories. And so I was the, human interest reporter. And so the show was only 30 minutes, but my professor gave me 10 of those minutes. And so that would never happen today, where one person gets a third of the show.
Yeah.
But, she just really, Professor Whitaker, heck, really just liked, the stories I was putting together. Now, looking back on them, these stories were not great, and so, but I mean, I'm also, one of my tougher critics too. So, but I'm like, if I knew then what I know now, what I know now, if I knew it then, it would be a lot different. But, so I thought like, oh, I'm going to be on air. I'm going to go, and eventually be the, Juan Condi of, take his spot, like when I graduated from college. And, but then, like I mentioned earlier, Hampton's where I met the person that hired me to work at ESPN the first time. And, Hampton used to do a mass media symposium where media companies would just come and just tell us what their companies are doing and how awesome their companies are. There was no career fair around it. It was just, hey, we're doing these cool things and you could join us one day too, but this isn't a career fair. And I ended up being the moderator for the ESPN talk, and Al Jaffe came down and talked to us. And Al, his main job was hiring on-air talent, but he also hired production assistants. And, I had to kind of get to know him before, because this was, pre what the internet is today. And so we're just kind of talking before the speech or the talk that he was giving. And, just like, where are you from? We just had a conversation, it's like, and I just kind of made some notes and, introduced him, and then he went on and did his thing. And so then after it's over, he was like, hey, what are you doing after college? And I was like, working at ESPN? Huh? He's like, no, seriously, do you want to come up for an interview? I'm like, I would love to. So he was like, all right, we'll call this woman. She'll set it up. So I set it up. Then they're like, all right, when you get to the campus, just go to the front desk and ask for this woman. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got it. And I get there, ask for her. I get to her desk and she's like, oh, he'll be right with you. I was like, who do you mean? He'll be right with me. It ended up being Al. I thought I was interviewing with her. And so it ended up just being like an extended conversation from the one we had 2 months previous. And so the funny thing is, so he came and spoke to our journalism school in April. We graduated May 14th, 2000. My interview with ESPN was May 16th, 2000. So technically when I graduated, I didn't have a job. So, we did the interview. I didn't think I did great on the interview because it was all just like sports quiz stuff. And he asked me who my teams were. And I told him I rooted for all the DC teams, but mainly the football team. And so then he asked me questions about the Padres and the Astros and the White Sox and the Rockets and the Chargers. And I was like, all right. So I thought I had bombed it. But then the thing that I think helped me get the job was he asked me, who are your top 5 candidates for the Vezina Trophy? And I thought about it for a bit. And I'm like, all right, do me this favor. You tell me what the Vezina Trophy is for. I'll give you an answer. He's like, oh, it's for the top goalie in the NHL. I was like, oh, cool. I knew 5 goalies.
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
And so I just named those 5 and kind of gave, a made up reason. And at the end, he was like, well, when can you start? I'm like, what? Did we just go through the same interview? But I think that last one was the one that got me the job, because I was willing to say, I don't know, but with more information, I'll give you an answer. So it was really kind of, one of those things where, I'm pretty sure, our mom was in her own way was like, don't be a know-it-all, because you don't know everything. And, if you can admit that you don't know everything, then you're willing to kind of have that vulnerability of, look, I don't know. I'm just going to tell you straight up, I don't know, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to give you an answer if you give me more information. And so, I told him, I was like, oh, I could, so I was May 16th. I was like, oh, I can start in a month. And so I get out of the interview, I call home and I'm like, hey, I got the job. I started in a month. And our mom's like, well, can you give it a little bit more time? I mean, you're moving up to Connecticut. We'd like to, have some time with you because, 4 years in college and not really having a lot of free time because of football. I was like, oh yeah, I'll call him back. And so I call him back and I'm like, hey, can I actually start a month later? And they were like, yeah, you can start the first week of July. And so, July 3rd, 2000 at ESPN. And then my plan was, all right, so I'll do this ESPN thing for 2 years, right? I'll get all this experience. That way, normally when you're coming out of college, you kind of have to start at a small market like in South Dakota or Wyoming or, someplace in Texas. I was like, all right, well, if I started ESPN, I could probably shortcut some of that and maybe start in a place where people actually live. But got to ESPN, absolutely loved it, and just kind of took off from there.
Very cool. All right, we're a little past an hour, but I have two more questions. They're both reasonably quick. All right, first question for you, Stacie, and then Acie, this will be for you as well. You're a talk show host. You have one show, only one show. You get to invite 4 guests: a male, a female, a musical act, and a comedian. If you're into stand-up comedy, if you're not, then you don't have to have that person on your show. They can be alive or dead. They can be famous or not famous. They can be somebody you know or knew, or somebody you don't know at all. Your show can be about humor. It can be about pure entertainment. It can be thought-provoking. It can be whatever you want it to be. Who are your guests, Stacie?
Okay, so this is going to be crazy. I'm obsessed with Judge Judy, so she's going to be my female.
I did not see that coming, Stacie.
It's crazy right now. My male would be former President Obama, but I am also going to sneak in Michelle because she would have been my number 2. And then I'm a huge go-go fan, so a band from DC like Junkyard or Backyard Band would be my band.
And not a stand-up comedy fan?
Oh, and Kevin Hart.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I would come to your show. I would pay a lot of money to come to your show.
Okay.
I did not see Judge Judy coming at all. All right,
it's a major problem for me right now.
you should meet my wife. Every time I come in the room, she's watching it.
Oh.
All right, Acie, who's on your show?
Before that, so Stacie technically has met President Obama because I got to meet him in the White House doing a production of Barakatology, his final year in office.
Oh, you got to do that?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Stacie, you're already there. Yep. And but I would say Denzel Washington is my male guest. Maya Angelou is my female guest. Comedian is probably Bernie Mac. And band is the Bee Gees. Because my wife loves them, and so we listen to them a lot. And so, it just it's very comforting music that they sing for the most part.
Yeah, Bernie Mac, God rest his soul, is every time he does anything, I laugh. I can't help but laugh. and I think he's trying to make the audience laugh every time I laugh, but it doesn't matter. He's comedy god. That's a great answer. Kevin Hart's still trying to be as funny as Bernie Mac, even though Kevin Hart's very funny.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Last question. Just tell us about your families, like immediate families.
So I have two daughters, Jayla, who's 16, Josie, who is 8. They're amazing. And I have a son who is 21. His name is Cadiz. That's my immediate family.
Awesome. And Acie?
Yeah, so no kids for me, just me and my wife, Cam. And then we have 2 dogs, Balky and Otis. No idea what they actually are, but we tend to guess on what they are. But, outside of that, it's just the four of us down here in Charlotte, trying to make things happen.
Are you ever going to make it back to Central Virginia, Acie?
It's a good place to come and visit. But because like it never is not going to be home, and so I kind of see it as my first home, and Charlotte here is my second home. So,
all right, right on. And Stacie, opposite question for you: are you ever going to leave Central Virginia besides your 4 years in Hampton?
I have no plans to. I literally love my family. I love that a decent chunk of us are still in Ashland. The rest of them are, spread out a little bit, but I can get to them within less than an hour. So I think Virginia will always be my home.
Right on. Well, guys, I had a great time talking to you. Wick, he didn't lead me astray. He said you were going to be fantastic on this, and you certainly were. I'm glad he connected us, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.